Welcome to this Death is for the Dying Epitaph, a mini episode of the podcast. I'm your host, Rebecca Richmond, and joining me as always is the podcast producer, Marco Burlow. Hey, Marco.
Hello, how are you?
I am doing all right.
Good.
We just listened to episode 3,
Hmm.
and that was pretty emotional.
Yes, it
Um,
was.
what was your takeaway from that?
Oh man. I think when I was editing it, the thing that I always kind of I kind of really embody or at least relate to was the bit where where Mara was talking about the fact that she was distraught for like 2 or 3 days, however long it was, when she got the news of the diagnosis. And why it resonated with me is because I can empathize with that because I've been in situations where I've gotten bad news and having that emotion kind of take over you for days and affect you in every single aspect of your life. I think for me was the biggest thing that I got from it.
Yeah, I can see that. I I don't know that I've ever quite hit that. Maybe I've not been in the situation. I think the thing for me that really stuck out was the well, there's kind of two things. One is there's this period of time where maybe you have a terminal illness,
Hmm.
or maybe you have one of several terminal illnesses. Like that unknowing,
Yeah.
that would kill me. Like
Yes.
I would just be nothing but anxiety. The other thing that kind of really struck home is like as soon as you get the diagnosis, that becomes your identity. You're like
Yeah.
no longer regular person going to work. You are, you know, MS sufferer, or you are ALS sufferer, or you are cancer sufferer. And that becomes everything.
I
And
know.
shadows everything else in your life. And this is actually something that stuck out with me in a book I was reading about a surgeon who gets cancer, and it's called When Breath Becomes Air by Paul Collinathy.
Hmm.
And he talks a lot about like how he feels he's no longer a surgeon. He's just or not even survivor because he ends up dying. Sorry to ruin the book.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. But just losing everything else except that part of your identity,
Yeah.
and like how that can, I don't know, just take over your life.
Yeah. And it even becomes part of your legacy. And at the very end, when you read an obituary, what does it say? Well, it
Yeah.
says, he was a father of three. He did this, he did that, and he lost his battle with cancer or
Yeah.
whatever it was. And yeah, you're right. It becomes part of your identity. But I think if I was to maybe look at the silver lining, because I think, as Mara mentions it in this particular episode, finding a community,
Yeah.
finding the people that are in this with you, and knowing that there are people out there that know exactly how you're feeling, know exactly the challenges and struggles that you're going through day in and day out, and also even have some maybe resources that you could use that will
Yeah.
make your life and the whole thing a lot easier. So, for me, I've always thought of that. And that's kind of like what I've been trying to do to maybe cope with a potential future diagnosis, um, to kind of think to myself, okay, I'm going to have this problem. It's going to affect the quality of my life. But at the same time, I know I'm not the only person going through it. And there are people out there that can help me. And I'll find a new community, a new group of people.
Yeah. Or even find people. One of the things she kept mentioning is like how much friends helped her, how much people she didn't
Right.
expect to help her helped her. Now, Marco, you and I have talked about this, so I
Hmm.
already know this answer, but What is the worst diagnosis for you? What is the thing that freaks you out the most?
It would be this one. It would be this one in the episode. Truth be told, it was very hard for me to edit this episode because I had to constantly listen to it over and over again. And I did my best to try to treat it just as audio and not necessarily listen. It was just hearing for different things. But unfortunately, it didn't, I wasn't too successful. It's part of the reason why I think it's a little bit delayed is because I had to go through a lot of, mental health struggles to get through this. And yeah, it's knowing that this kind of disease is out there. And I think it's the worst kind because mentally you are there. Mentally you are the same person, but physically you are just a shell of yourself. And to not be able to use this instrument that is our body to enjoy life, to engage with others, to basically take advantage of all the things that life has to offer us, to take that away and slowly wither and die is, I think, is just the absolute worst way to go. Um, and there are times where I feel like it could be other things, whether it's ALS, you mentioned it, MS, I got family that has that, and that's not fun either. So for me, any neurological disease, no, thank you. So that for me is been the biggest one. Um, I don't think I've ever asked you this question, so I don't know what your answer would be.
I don't have as strong a fear. Like it's not an emotional fear, but I do think so for me, I wouldn't want to be in like there's the neurological ones, there's the, dementia,
Mm,
which, I go into to later as my mom is suffering from dementia. But I think being in constant pain, just like, when you are you everybody gets injured or whatever, and it's just there. And like I think it changes your personality because you're just grumpy and you're in pain. I think that would be the worst for me. So something, and cancer can do that. I know there's options you can fight, you can win, but you don't always, and it can be pretty painful. So that would be more of my fear is being in constant pain.
yeah, you're totally right about, changing the personality of the person because I've seen that before with a bunch of folks that I knew growing up kind of thing. And they become a totally different person and they are not the person that you remember. And it's just because you have this constant pain and you just want it to turn off. You
Yeah.
just to get a small reprieve here and
Yeah.
there and feel normal again is,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So if you were to get that diagnosis, how do you think you would react to it?
Not well. Um, I mean, I guess I would be like pretend stoic and then go and cry in the bathroom later. Um, Tends to be my modus operandi. Yeah, I I think it would I think it would be a damn struggle.
Yeah,
I mean, I guess I think I would have more problem with uncertainty than a solid diagnosis. And
okay,
I
I
know
could see that.
that is more of a struggle for me. Like if it's like maybe you have MS or ALS or whatever, but we have to rule everything else out. That would be a harder time for me
Yeah,
than knowing. I think one of the things that I think about right now, and this is kind of going back to what I said before about identity, is like not trying to be so certain in my identity. So like, yes, right now I have fully functioning limbs and I can walk without pain. this is not always going to be true.
Right.
Accepting that that part of my identity is going to change, like being ready for that identity change is like the one thing that I can at least maybe prepare myself for, at least
Yeah.
acknowledge. But I still think if there's like an uncertainty, that is gonna drive me insane. And I'm just gonna like have anxiety spirals.
Yeah. No, that you're totally right. Like doing or controlling what you can control, if you can mentally prepare for that kind of stuff, that's fantastic, right? Um, and you're right. I agree with you in the sense that not having an official diagnosis and being in that limbo state is probably the worst. I don't know. Have you watched the Apple TV show Shrinking at all?
I watched a few episodes.
Okay. So for those of you that haven't watched it, it is a fantastic show. I think it's probably the best show about mental health that's out there. And in the show, there's one character who has a diagnosis given to him, and that person um, is a mental health specialist. They're a psychiatrist. I'm trying to keep, you know, this thing, whole thing spoiler free. But effectively,
I already
what they
spoiled the book.
um, but what they do once they got this diagnosis, they basically every morning for 15 minutes, they allow themselves to cry and to get all of that out of their system and to basically acknowledge it to be like, I am in this state. You can feel sorry for yourself. Woe is me, whatever it is, you just get it out of your system. And then for the rest of the day, you proceed as if, you're a normal human being, but you
Yeah.
allow yourself to grieve essentially at the beginning or end of every day so that you know you have a little bit more mental capacity to handle all the things that are coming at you. I think that's what I would want to do. I would hope that's something that I would do if I was to get that kind of news.
What do you think your reaction would be though?
Truthfully,
Yeah.
same as yours, identical.
Anxiety
Just
spiral.
curl up over there on that bed and just basically put a pillow over my face and be like, yeah, yeah. But yeah, it's normal though. I mean, I think that's a normal reaction. I
Yeah.
think
I mean,
like
your
that's
entire life has changed.
yeah, exactly.
You're not your as I said, your identity changed, your dreams are gone, you know, your hopes to, I don't know, go sail, do cruise sails in your retirement, it's all gone. Um, grandkids or whatever it was that you had as your future.
Yeah.
And I think it's completely fair to like grieve that and
Yeah.
important to grieve it and not just pretend that nothing happened.
There's no right way to do it.
No.
There really isn't. I mean, and we're not here to tell our audience, what they should do or what they shouldn't do. Like everybody reacts differently, and I think more than anything else, if people, you know, listen to the episode, hopefully the positives that come out of it is that you can react any way that you want, any way that feels natural and good for you. Maybe you try, doing that morning thing, 15 minutes in the morning kind of thing, just get it out of your system. You might find people that will show up for you that you never thought would, right? Like there's a lot of positives that can come out of this. But it's just like anything. This is the, first stage of grief essentially, right? We all go through that denial phase, and eventually when we get through all the stages, we land on acceptance. So I think that's a good spot to end, don't you think?
Absolutely. You want to take a break?
Absolutely. I'm gonna do the ending here, I think. I'm gonna try this out. So thank you all of you that joined us here today, that are have been watching and listening to the podcast. We really appreciate you. And we would like to hear from you. So if you have a free moment, send us an email at lifeisfortheliving podcast@gmail.com, or you can reach out to us on Instagram and Twitter at lifeisforthel. And we look forward to interacting with you. Have a great day, everybody. We'll see you.
Thanks
Bye.
for listening. Bye.